How dare you refuse my mother, you ungrateful tramp? My husband screamed, slamming a ceramic plate against my head. All because I wouldn't sign my condo over to my mother-in-law and refused to pay her $5,000 every single month. I calmly stood up and said, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." The moment those words left my mouth, everyone went pale. Sierra stared at the shattered pieces of the plate on the floor and felt the warm stickiness of blood trickling down her cheek. The guests froze, glasses halfway to their mouths. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Hawthorne, was clapping her hands, letting out a shriek of delighted triumph, and my husband, Darren, stood over me, his face contorted in a furious red mask. I didn't even recognize the man. Just that morning, I thought it would be a regular birthday party. Just yesterday, I still hoped things would get better. But now, looking into his glazed-over eyes, I finally understood. It's over. And whatever happened next was going to change my life forever. But to truly understand how I ended up here on the floor of my own downtown condo with a busted face and an iron calm settling in my soul, we have to go back 2 years.
2 years ago, Sierra.
Sterling was a happy bride to be busy planning her wedding. Welcome to Betty's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and like my video. Now, let's jump back into my story.
I'm
Sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. I was 32, and my fiancé Darren was 34.
We
Met at a corporate networking event held at one of Atlanta's trendiest restaurants. Darren worked as a sales manager for a partner company. I was running the sales division for a large tech firm. From the moment I saw him, he seemed like the man I'd been searching for my whole life. Reliable, stable, attentive. He wasn't a movie star, but he was handsome. And while he wasn't rich, he was certainly ambitious. He wooed me the right way. Fresh flowers. Every time we met, Friday night dinners, and a real attention to detail.
He
remembered that I preferred white roses over red. He knew I hated being late. He'd open the car door for me, hold my coat, and walk me all the way to my unit door. I had just come out of a draining 5-year relationship where I wasn't appreciated. My ex-boyfriend thought my career success was cute but trivial and treated my salary like it was the universal ATM. He constantly pushed me to quit my high-pressure job and start having kids, even though he made practically nothing and spent every evening drinking beer with his buddies in the garage. When I finally found the courage to leave, he didn't even try to stop me. He just shrugged and said, "Go on then. Who'd want you turning 30? After that breakup, I spent 6 months recovering. I worked like crazy just to keep my mind busy, went to therapy, and slowly learned to trust people again. Then Darren showed up, a blast of fresh air after being stuck in a stale basement. He genuinely admired my accomplishments. He said he was proud of
me.
He constantly bragged to his friends about how smart and beautiful his Black Queen was. I started to thaw out.
I
blossomed and dared to believe in love once more. I owned my 2-bedroom condo in downtown Atlanta. I bought it on my own when I was 28, pouring every dollar from my salary and bonuses into it.
It
wasn't easy. I worked like a dog, clocking 60, sometimes 70 hours a week.
No vacations, no real weekends.
I denied myself everything. I bought clothes during clearance sales, brought lunch from home, and never called an Uber. Every single month, I saved half my paycheck. My parents helped where they could, but I raised the bulk of the down payment myself. I took out a 15-year mortgage and paid it off in 7. Every extra principal payment felt like a small victory. When I made that final payment at 28 and got the title documents with only my name on them, I cried happy tears. The condo was mine. No debt, no obligations. It was my fortress, my independence, my greatest accomplishment. Every square foot of that place was earned through my blood, sweat, and
tears.
I remembered picking out the paint colors, wallpapering the guest room myself until 3 in the morning. Because I couldn't afford contractors. I bought furniture off Craigslist, restored and repainted it, and planted flowers on the balcony. This was my world, and here I felt truly safe. Darren lived in a rented one-bedroom place far outside the perimeter. He claimed he was saving up for his own place, but it wasn't working out. His salary was average, and his expenses were high. He paid $1,800 in rent monthly, which didn't leave much for living. I didn't worry about it. Love isn't measured in square footage. After all, I'd walked the same path, and I knew how hard it was to save money in this country. I liked Darren for who he was, not for his bank account. He was kind, thoughtful, and understanding.
Or,
So, I thought when he proposed 8 months into our relationship, I said yes, without hesitation. We were at the same restaurant where we first met. Darren knelt right in the middle of the dining room and pulled out a box with a ring. A simple, tasteful piece, nothing flashy. But I didn't care about the diamond. I said yes, and wept with happiness. Finally, I was going to have a real
family.
Finally, I wouldn't be alone. We decided to keep the wedding small. Just a quiet ceremony. Neither of us was at the age for a massive 200-person ballroom reception. Plus, we were saving for a honeymoon in Cabo San Lucas.
We
Invited only our closest relatives, parents, and a couple of friends. I bought a simple white dress from a department store. Darren wore the suit he used for work. It was modest but heartfelt. The first warning sign came just before the wedding. 2 weeks before the courthouse date, we were sitting in my kitchen discussing logistics. Who would handle the HOA fees, who'd pay for groceries, and how we divide the
chores.
Suddenly, Darren casually mentioned, "Babe, have you thought about putting the condo in both our names? So I can feel like it's my home.
2.
It just feels awkward living in your place when I'm nobody in it." I laughed. I honestly thought he was joking. "Darren, it's my premarital property. Legally, it stays mine after we marry, but you're living here with me. This is our home." Darren nodded and smiled, but I caught a flicker in his eyes, a shadow of disappointment or resentment. I decided not to dwell on it. Everyone gets wedding jitters.
He
Probably just wants to feel like the man of the house, not a guest. But something inside me stiffened. A tiny splinter of worry dug into my heart. I tried to reassure myself. He didn't push it.
he just asked.
Isn't it normal for a man to want to feel secure in his home?
I
Dismissed the anxious thoughts and kept planning the wedding. We were married in a small circle on a warm September day. My parents flew in from Richmond, Virginia. My mother, Brenda Sterling, a former middle school teacher, and my father, Colonel Robert Sterling, U.S. Army, retired. Dad had served his whole life, reaching the rank of colonel.
he
Was tall, sharp, and carried himself with a military bearing. He was always my role model for strength and reliability. The man who taught me to never give up and always defend my boundaries. Darren's mother, Eleanor Hawthorne, showed up with her friend, Tanya. Darren's father had passed away 5 years prior from a heart attack, and Eleanor had lived alone since then in a small one-bedroom place outside the perimeter. She was 60 years old.
she
Received about $1,000 in Social Security benefits and earned another $800 a month. Cleaning at a shopping center 3 times a week. It was enough to get by, but as she constantly reminded everyone, it was barely bread and water. When I first met her, Ella Lehner seemed like a typical older woman. A little complainy, a little clingy, but harmless. At the wedding she kept wringing her hands. "It's so hard being alone," she sighed. "It's a blessing that my sweet Darren now has such a caring wife." She dabbed her eyes with a tissue for tears that weren't there and looked at me with a strange, appraising smile. I smiled back, oblivious to what she truly meant by caring. I thought Eleanor was just happy for her son, that she'd gained a daughter
and an ally.
I even promised myself I'd be good to my mother-in-law, visit her, and help her out. After all, she had nobody but Darren. After a modest dinner at a local cafe, the newlyweds left for a one-week honeymoon. In Cabo, we lay on the beach, swam in the ocean, and made love every night in the hotel room. Darren was tender and attentive. I felt happy. Finally, I have a family. Finally, I'm not alone. The first 3 months of our life together were truly sweet. Darren moved in immediately after we returned from Cabo. He brought just 2 duffel bags of stuff, clothes, shoes, a laptop, and a couple of books. Everything else was in his rental, which he quickly gave up. Why should I pay rent when we have such a beautiful condo? He said, kissing me on the forehead. We set up our home like any newly married couple. We bought new bedding, hung joint photos in frames, and chose new curtains.
Darren suggested
Rearranging the furniture, and I agreed. We moved the couch, swapped the armchair, and argued good-naturedly about where to put the floor lamp. Saturday nights, we watched movies wrapped in a blanket. Sundays we walked in the park, fed the ducks, and grabbed coffee at little shops. I continued to work hard. Being a sales director requires absolute commitment, especially in our competitive market. I left the house at 8 o'clock in the morning and returned at 7, sometimes 9 at night. Darren also worked late, but his schedule was slightly more flexible. Sometimes he came home earlier, picking up takeout on the way, rotisserie, chicken, salads, pizza. Other times I'd swing by the grocery store, grab some ready-made meals, and quickly cook something. Neither of us had the time or desire to cook full dinners every day. We both worked, and we were both tired. It seemed normal. My salary was twice as high as Darren's. I took home about $10,000 net monthly. He made about $5,000. Darren didn't seem to feel awkward about this. We agreed to split groceries and
Hoa phe evenly.
I knew it was tough for him. Half his salary went to shared expenses, leaving only about $2,000 for personal needs. But Darren never complained. He said he was due for a promotion and a raise soon. A month after the wedding, Ella Lehner started visiting. At first, it was once a week on Saturdays. Darren was happy, hugging his mom, settling her on the couch, and making her tea. I tried to be a good hostess, buying pastries, setting the table, and asking about her health. Ella Lehner would stay for 4 hours, tell stories, complain about her social security payments, the neighbors, and her health, then leave. I considered it normal. A mother misses her son and wants to see him. No big deal. But after a month, the visits became more frequent. Eleanor started coming twice a week, then every other day, then almost every day, always without warning.
I
Would come home exhausted from work and find my mother-in-law in the kitchen. "Oh, Sierra's home," Ella Lehner would say, without looking up from her cup of tea. I decided to make my poor Darren some soup. You never cook him a real meal. At first, I held back, not wanting conflict early in my marriage. I would just nod, head for the shower, and change clothes, but the irritation was mounting. Ella Lehner started opening the fridge and surveying the contents with a look of disapproval. "My poor Darren, you've gotten so thin," she would cluck, pulling out my yogurt and ready-made meals. "Sierra, honey, don't you cook at all? A man needs to be
fed.
He works hard and needs strength." I worked until 7, sometimes 9 at night. I had neither the time nor the desire to cook stews and pot roasts every day.
I
Earned more than my husband and provided for the family just as much, if not more, than he did. Darren didn't complain about the food, eating everything without issue. But Eleanor acted as if it were a crime. In my day, wives worked like a dog, and the home was a haven, and the husband was well-fed. She would pontificate, sitting on my couch, drinking my tea from my best mug. "But you, Sierra, you're a career woman. Family should come first." Darren was silent, chewing on store-bought salad. I clenched my jaw and stayed silent too. I didn't want to fight. I hoped it was temporary, that Eleanor would calm down and get used to the fact that her son was married and had his own life. But the mother-in-law seemed to think otherwise. Then the hints about money started. At first, they were timid, almost unnoticeable. Oh, I'm out of my blood pressure medication again, and my check doesn't come for another week. Eleanor would sigh, pulling empty pill packets from her purse. My sweet Darren, could you help your mother?
I
Need $300 for my prescription. Darren, of course, helped, pulling out his wallet and counting bills. $300,500, $800. I didn't object. It was his mother. He had the right to support her.
Eleanor.
Truly had a modest income. And at 60, her health wasn't perfect. Helping parents is normal, but the amounts grew. After 3 months, Eleanor was openly saying, Darren, I need $2,000 urgently. My water heater burst. I need to call a plumber. Then another $2,000 for a new winter coat because her old one was completely worn out. Then $1,000 for a new television because the old one broke. Then $500 for new boots.
Darren
Started racking up debt. His salary was $5,000. Half of that went to shared expenses. From the remaining $2,500, he still had to pay for his phone, transit pass, lunch at work, clothes, and then $2 or $3,000 went to his mother. He started borrowing from colleagues and taking out payday loans. One evening, for months after the wedding, Darren approached me while I was working on a quarterly report on my laptop. Babe, can you lend me $2,000? I promised Mom for her medication, and I'm completely wiped out right now. Payday is a week away. I looked up from the screen at my husband. Darren, I see you giving her half your salary every month. Is this healthy? She's my mother. She's having a hard time, Darren replied, avoiding my gaze. She's a retiree.
She
Has Social Security plus her cleaning job 3 times a week. You told me yourself she has enough to live on. So,
what?
I should abandon her?
Dad's gone.
She has no one but me. I'm not saying abandon her. I'm saying $2,000 every month is too much. You're getting into debt because of this. Are you going to give it to me or not? Darren clenched
His jaw.
I sighed. I didn't want a conflict, so I gave him $2,000. Then, another $2,000 a month later, and another $1,000 after that. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how to stop it. Darren was becoming nervous, irritable. He'd snap at me and slam doors. I felt our relationship deteriorating, but was helpless to fix it. Eleanor visited more often. Every visit ended with a money discussion. Darren, I need some money for repairs. Darren, my shoes are broken. Darren, the utility bills went
Up.
and every time Darren would give in. Then 6 months after the wedding, Eleanor issued her main demand. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. Darren was at work for an urgent client meeting.
I det just.
Gotten back from the gym, showered, and planned to relax on the couch with a book. But when I opened the door, I found Eleanor in the kitchen. My mother-in-law was sitting at the table, sipping tea and eating cookies from my snack dish. Sierra, we need to talk. Ella Laner started, and I instantly became guarded. There was a steely edge in her voice that hadn't been there before. I've thought long and hard about how to say this gently, but I'll be
Direct.
You're married to my son. That means you're part of our family, and in our family, we help each other.
I said.
Down across from her, without speaking, my heart started beating with apprehension. I had a bad feeling about
This.
I'm struggling alone, Eleanor continued, taking a sip of tea.
My
Income is small and my health is declining. Darren helps, but his salary isn't enough. You, on the other hand, have a good income. You earn well over $100,000 a year. Ella Laner, I understand, but I want you to transfer $5,000 to me every month. Ella Laner cut me off. Darren has already agreed. He thinks it's fair. I was stunned. $5,000. Every month? That was nearly half my take-home pay. Well, you don't mind, do you? The mother-in-law pressed, seeing my confusion. You have a high salary, and your condo is paid off. You're not living in a mortgage or paying rent. You're a rich woman, and I'm barely making ends meet. Eleanor, that's half. My post-tax salary. I have expenses too.
Hoa, utility, gadosedi, galot.
Makeup. Eleanor sneered. So, that's it. You pamper yourself while your mother-in-law lives on bread and water? That's not what I meant. It's just that $5,000 is a huge amount.
It's
Huge for you, but it's a normal life for me. I'm not asking for $1 million, just 5,000. Darren said you'd agree, because you're a kind girl. I felt the anger boil up. Inside me, Darren had discussed this with his mother without me, promising her my money without even asking. I need to think about it, I said flatly, and talk to Darren. There's nothing to think about. Eleanor raised her voice. A respectable daughter-in-law doesn't think she helps. Tanya's daughter-in-law. Now she's a gem. She does everything for her mother-in-law, transfers money, buys gifts, takes her on vacation. And you? She trailed off, pursing her lips. Meaningfully. I stood up. Eleanor, I need some rest. Let's end this conversation. The mother-in-law left, slamming the door dramatically. I was left alone in the kitchen, my hands shaking. I was seething. $5,000 a month. That was absurd. Eleanor had an income and a side job. She had enough to live on. Why did she need another $5,000? When Darren returned from work that evening, I attacked him with questions before he even took off his jacket. Darren, your mother was here today. She demanded I transfer $5,000 to her every month. Did you know about this?
Darren.
Threw up his hands sheepishly. Well, Mom asked. I said I'd talk to you. I thought you wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind giving up $5,000 every month. Darren, are you serious? Babe, but you have it. You're not broke. It's not about being broke. It's an enormous amount of money. Your mother isn't starving, but she's struggling. She's alone. You see how she lives, Darren? She gets a check and works a part-time job. You constantly give her money. Why another $5,000? So she can live comfortably, travel, buy nice things. She sacrificed her whole life for me. She worked 3 jobs to raise me, denying herself everything. Now it's my turn to take care of her. I looked at my husband and didn't recognize him. Where was the charming, understanding man I married?
Fine, Eastside.
How about this? I'll give her $1,000 a month temporarily until she finds better work. Or until you get your raise. $1,000, babe. That's nothing. It's not nothing. It's significant help. If you want her to have more, you pay it. We had a huge fight. Darren slammed the door and left to stay at his mother's place. He only came back in the morning, sullen and silent. I didn't sleep all night. For the first time, I had serious doubts about my marriage. From then on, I started transferring $1,000 to Eleanor monthly. The mother-in-law accepted the money with a sour look, hinting every time that it wasn't enough. $1,000? She'd say with the air of an insulted queen. Well, it's something. Darren was moody and silent. The atmosphere at home grew heavier. We barely spoke, each sitting in our own corner in the evenings. Me with my laptop, him with his phone. Sex stopped completely. We stopped kissing in mornings. We were strangers living under the same roof. Then came the visits without warning. Eleanor would show up at any time, day or night. Darren had given her a copy of the front door key without my knowledge. I would come home from work and find her in the kitchen, rummaging through the refrigerator. Oh, Sierra's home. Eleanor would say, without looking up. I'm just checking what you two are eating. Nothing but processed food. Darren is going to get sick eating like this. Or she'd walk into the bedroom and dig through my drawers. My God, look at all these clothes you have. And Darren is wearing old shirts. Aren't you ashamed? I protested. But Darren always jumped to his mother's defense. She's my mom. She can do that. Don't be so cold. She's just worried about us. One day, I came home and found that Ella Lehner had completely rearranged the furniture in the living room. The couch was against a different wall. The armchair was by the window, and the rug was rolled up and tucked away. "It's cozier this way," the mother-in-law announced when I stood frozen in the doorway. "I know best. I'm older. I have taste." "Eleanor, this is my condo," I exploded. "It's our condo," she corrected me coldly. "Darren lives here. That means it's our condo. Or are you saying my son is a stranger here?" Darren again took her side. "Why are you freaking out over furniture? It looks fine." I started to feel like a stranger in my own home. Then 1 year after the wedding, Eleanor presented her ultimate demand. It was a normal Wednesday evening. I came home exhausted.
Ide.
Spent the whole day in negotiations with a difficult client. Darren was on the couch watching football. I found Eleanor in the kitchen with her friend Tanya. Both were sitting at the table drinking tea and eating candy from my dish. "Seer, sit down," Eleanor commanded. "We need to discuss something important."
I
Sat down, sensing that this was serious. "I've been quiet for too long, but I can't anymore." The mother-in-law began ceremoniously. "You live in a luxury 2-bedroom condo downtown, and I'm in a little 1-bedroom apartment in a rundown complex outside the perimeter with no elevator. It's unfair." I waited silently for her to continue, clenching my fists under the table. "I want you to sign this condo over to me or to Darren. It doesn't matter. The main thing is that it officially belongs to our family, not just to you." I felt everything inside me turn to ice. "Eleanor, are you out of your mind? This is my premarital property." "So what?" "Darren is your husband. Everything the wife owns belongs to the husband. That's how it should be." Tanya nodded along. "She's right. My daughter-in-law signed everything over to my son right away.
A
Good girl understands that family is one unit." I looked toward Darren.
He was
Sitting in the living room, his back to the kitchen, but I knew he could hear everything. "Darren, are you hearing this? Say something." Darren turned around uncertainly and mumbled, "Well, Mom isn't asking for herself. It's for us, for our future." "What future? This is my condo. I bought it with my own money before we got married." "But we're a family now," Eleanor protested. "Or are you saying you don't trust my son?" "It's not about trust. It's about the fact that this is my asset, and I'm not signing it over to anyone."
Aha.
Tanya sneered viciously. "So, you don't trust him? You're afraid he'll take it?"
Take it?
"Who would take it? This is absurd." Eleanor stood up. Her face flushed red. "Absurd? You're an ungrateful, selfish person." Ella Lehner shrieked. "Do you hear how she talks to your mother?
Are
You going to tolerate this?" Darren hesitantly got up from the couch and walked to the kitchen doorway.
babe.
"Maybe you should think about it. At least sign over a share to me. Half the condo.
No, not a share.
Not the whole
Condo.
This is my property. Period." Tanya and Ella Lehner exchanged glances.
A
Cold gleam appeared in their eyes that made me uneasy.
Fine Eleanorisid.
"We'll see about that." They left, slamming the door. Darren remained silent, turning away from me. I went to bed with a heavy heart. Something was about to happen. I felt it in my gut. The next day, I came home from work and found an envelope on the counter. Inside were documents. I opened them and froze. It was a power of attorney granting the right to dispose of my condo. The signature was mine, but I hadn't signed. It was a forgery. I went cold. Darren was sitting in the living room, watching TV as if nothing had happened. "Darren, what is this?" I walked into the living room holding the document. "It's the power of attorney. Mom said to get it drawn up. You forged my signature?"
I
"Thought you wouldn't mind." "I do mind. I mind completely. This is illegal.
It's
Document fraud. It's a felony." "Don't yell. Mom meant well." I ripped the power of attorney to shreds. My hands were shaking with fury. If this ever happens again, I'm going to the police.
Do you
Understand? Darren was silent. Something dark and evil flashed in his eyes.
I
Realized I was in deep trouble. Very deep trouble. And it was just beginning. After the incident with the forged document, I couldn't sleep for several nights. I lay next to my husband who was snoring peacefully and thought about how he was capable of document fraud, of a crime. For what?
for a
Condo? For his mother? The Darren I loved, the one who seemed reliable and honest, was capable of forging my signature. In the morning, after Darren left for work, I typed family law attorney into Google. I found a firm with good reviews near my office and booked a consultation for my lunch break. The attorney was a woman in her 50s, Alicia King, stern in a power suit with an attentive gaze. She listened to my story in silence, occasionally nodding and making notes. Sierra, your condo is premarital property, Alicia said when I finished. Legally, it belongs only to you.
Section
33 of the Georgia Code clearly states this. Even if you divorce, your husband has no right to it. Not an inch. Do you understand? Not an inch. I breathed a sigh of relief. So even if we split up, the condo remains mine. Absolutely, but there's a big but. Alicia took off her glasses and looked me straight in the eye. If you voluntarily sign the condo over to your husband or do so under pressure, you lose it, and proving anything afterward will be nearly
impossible.
They'll say you gave it as a gift. You signed it over yourself. But I'm not going to sign it over. The power of attorney your husband already tried to forge. I went cold again. You think he might try again? I don't know. But since he did it once, he might repeat it. People who cross that line once find it easier to do so a second time. What should I do? Don't give in to pressure. Stand firm and document everything. If they continue to threaten you, record the conversations, involve witnesses, and gather all your documents in case of divorce because, Sierra, I'll be honest with you, your situation is unhealthy and it's only going to get worse. I left the lawyer's office with a heavy heart but a firm resolve. I will not give up the condo. Never. It's mine. I earned this myself. Back home, I turned on the voice recorder on my phone and placed it in a visible spot in the living room. Darren noticed and asked, "What's that for?" "I'm going to record voice notes for work."
Elite. He
Shrugged and didn't ask again. A week later, Eleanor came back, this
time with a whole delegation.
with her were Tanya and two other women, Darren's
Aunt
Zena and his father's cousin Gabby. They settled on the couch and in the armchairs like a tribunal of judges.
I
Returned from work and froze in the doorway, staring at the gathering. "Seer, sit down," Eleanor commanded. "We've gathered here to talk to you nicely as a family." I silently took a chair near the door. Darren stood in the kitchen, leaning against the doorframe, staring at the floor. "Now listen here, darling." Aunt Zena, a plump woman in her 50s with dyed red hair, began. "We've all talked. This isn't right. You're living in a condo that Darren considers his home, and he's a nobody in it. That's not right.
A man needs to
Feel like the head of the house in our day." Tanya chimed in. Wives signed everything over to their husbands. That was the right way. That was honest. My granddaughter's husband doesn't even
work.
Gabby, a skinny woman with a pinched face, chimed in. He sits at home, but the house is in his name.
And
That's correct, because he's the man. He's the head of the family. I listened to this nonsense, unable to believe my
ears.
Excuse me, but what business is my condo of yours? What business? Ella Lehner.
Was outraged.
We're family. We worry about Darren. You're humiliating him. I'm not humiliating him. He lives here and uses everything equally with me. But the condo isn't in his name. Zena insisted. That's wrong. You should sign over at least half. I don't owe anyone anything. This is my premarital
Property.
See, Ella Lehner scanned her allies. I told you. Greedy, selfish. Only thinks about herself. You're bringing shame on our family, Gabby added. Everyone is talking about how Darren's wife doesn't respect him. Who is everyone? All the relatives and
Friends.
do you think we're quiet? We're telling the truth. That you won't sign over the condo? That you're disrespecting your mother-in-law? I stood up. That's enough. The conversation is over. I'm asking you to leave my condo. Our condo? Eleanor screamed. Darren lives here. Get out.
I
Flung the door. Open now or I'm calling the police. The women started to grumble, but slowly began to get up. Zena muttered about disrespecting elders. Tanya shook her head. Gabby hissed about shameless young people. Ella Lehner stopped at the threshold and hissed in my face. You will regret crossing our family. When they were all gone, I turned to Darren. You allowed them to stage the circus here. They just wanted to talk. They were demanding I give them my condo. Not give it. Sign it over to
me.
I'm your husband. And you think I should do that? Darren paused.
It would.
Be the right thing to do. I felt something break inside me.
Go to your
Mother's tonight.
what? Leave.
I need to think. Darren left, slamming the door.
Hard.
I was left alone. I sat on the couch and cried for the first time in all this. Not out of self-pity, but from hurt, from disappointment, from dashed hope. I had believed in this marriage so much, hoped to build a family. And what did I get?
A
Mama's boy husband and a manipulative mother-in-law who wanted to drain me dry. The next day at work, I received a strange anonymous email from someone in the HR department of the partner company, where Darren worked. Sierra, I know I shouldn't interfere, but I overheard your husband discussing with colleagues that he plans to hire a lawyer to sue you for a share of your condo. He claims he has grounds. Be careful. Sorry, this is anonymous. I read the email 3 times, so he was already consulting lawyers. The pressure from his mother wasn't random. They were preparing for war. I went back to Alicia King, the attorney, and showed her the email. Sierra, if your husband files for property division, he will lose, the lawyer reassured me. He has no grounds. The condo is premarital. You didn't invest joint funds in improvements. There were no renovations. He simply lived in it. That doesn't grant him ownership rights.
but he might try to invent something.
He might claim, for example, that he paid for renovations or bought furniture. Do you have proof that he didn't? All the furniture is mine, bought before the marriage. There were no renovations at all. Then you have nothing to fear. But just in case, gather all your documents, receipts for furniture if you saved them, bank statements proving you paid the HOA, everything that can prove he didn't invest. I went home and started gathering documents. Darren came back late that
night.
We didn't speak. We slept in separate rooms. He on the couch, me in the bedroom with the door locked. But Eleanor didn't give up. She started a genuine smear campaign against me, calling all of Darren's relatives, telling them what a terrible daughter-in-law I was. Greedy, heartless, disrespecting the elder. A week later, I ran into Darren's cousin, Oliver, at the grocery store. He looked at me with strange disdain and walked past without saying hello. Oliver, I called out. He stopped and turned around. Why didn't you say hi?
Why?
Should I greet someone who abuses an older woman?
What? What are you talking about?
Aunt Eleanor told everyone how you threw her out of your condo, how you refused to help, how you humiliate Darren.
I don't want to talk to you. He
turned and left. I stood in the middle of the street, my hands shaking. Eleanor was turning everyone against me, creating the image of a cruel, greedy daughter-in-law. At the next family gathering, where Darren dragged me for his Aunt Zena's birthday, I felt the full force of it. Everyone gave me the side-eye whispering behind my back. Someone demonstrably turned their back as I walked by. There she is. One of the aunts loudly said as I passed. Won't give up the condo. Disrespects her mother-in-law. Selfish. Another one chimed in. Things weren't like this in our day.
Darren was
Silent, standing nearby, looking away, offering no defense. I understood.
he
Was on their side. He agreed with them. I endured an hour of the party, and then left. Darren didn't even try to stop me. At home, I seriously considered.
divorce.
It had been 1 year and 2 months since the wedding. I worked, earned money, maintained the home, and my husband had turned into a stranger who looked at me with poorly concealed hostility. His mother had made me an outcast. His relatives thought I was a monster. But divorce felt like admitting defeat.
It
Was the end of my dream of a family. I hesitated. Maybe things will still work out.
maybe
Darren will come to his senses. He didn't. 6 months later, 1 year and 8 months after the wedding, Eleanor showed up again. This time, she brought a man. In a suit. Seer, meet him, the mother-in-law said with triumph in her
voice.
This is Mr. Miller, a real estate appraiser. He's going to value your condo now.
Why?
I was aghast. Because Darren is filing for property division, and we need an appraisal. Darren is filing for division.
I
Looked at my husband who was standing in the corner. Is this true? Darren nodded, not meeting my eyes. Mom said it's the right thing to do, that I'm entitled to half. You're not entitled to anything. This is my premarital property. The court will decide, Ella Lehner said coldly. And in the meantime, the appraiser will do his job. No one is appraising anything. Both of you get out of here now. I threw the door wide open. The appraiser backed away fearfully and rushed out the door. Eleanor lingered on the threshold. You will regret messing with our family. Darren will get what belongs to him. Nothing belongs to him.
will see.
I went to Alicia King again. She listened and shook her head.
Let
Them file. They'll lose, but it will be unpleasant. Lawsuits, nerves, time.
are
You ready for this? Do I have a choice, Sierra? As a woman to a woman.
get a
Divorce before it's too late. This marriage is toxic. It's destroying you. But I love him. I said it and realized it wasn't true anymore. I didn't love the person Darren had become. I loved the memory of who he was in the beginning. Love is not a reason to tolerate abuse and manipulation.
think about that. I
Went home and sat in the kitchen for a long time. Darren was at his mother's, as usual lately. He spent more time there than at home, only coming back to sleep. Our relationship was dead. We didn't talk, eat together, watch movies, or make love. We were strangers under one roof. Why drag it out? But still, I hesitated. A part of me still hoped for a miracle. Then came February. Darren was turning 35. Eleanor insisted on a big celebration. A large table, many guests, relatives. I don't want to host this party, I said when Darren informed me of his mother's plans. We have a bad relationship. Why pretend? It's my birthday. Can't you do this one thing for me? I'm asking one last time.
there
Was such despair in his voice that I wavered. Maybe this was a chance. Maybe at the party we talk normally. Remember the good times and reconcile. Fine, I agreed, but only if your mother doesn't cause a scene. She won't. I promise. He lied. I spent the entire Saturday preparing. I bought $800 worth of groceries. I cooked appetizers, sliced salmon, made canapes, roasted meat, and set up a huge table in the living room. I bought a cake from an expensive bakery and put flowers in vases. I wanted everything to be beautiful, to show Darren I was trying, that I loved him, or was trying to. Eleanor and Tanya showed up 2 hours before the start and immediately began bossing me around. This isn't placed.
right.
Move that vase. Take this away. Where's the wine? Why isn't the cake the right kind? I kept silent, gritting my teeth. Hold it together. It's a party. Don't ruin it. Guests began arriving at 7 o'clock. My parents flew in from Richmond. Dad, Colonel Robert Sterling, immediately assessed the situation. He saw Eleanor ordering me around and Darren standing aside, not intervening. Dad walked over to me and quietly asked, "Is everything okay, sweetie?" "Yes, Dad. Everything's fine." He looked at me skeptically but didn't press. Darren's aunts, cousins, and friends all looked at me with judgment. Ella Laner had clearly had time to tell everyone her version. I felt their stares and heard the whispers behind my back. The party started. Toasts, congratulations, laughter. Eleanor sat at the head of the table like a queen. Darren sat next to her, beaming. I sat at the other end of the table, next to my parents, feeling like a stranger at my own party, in my own condo. Then the passive-aggressive hints began. At first subtle, then increasingly blatant. "Now our daughter-in-law is gold," Tanya said loudly to everyone.
She signed
"Everything over to the mother-in-law, condo and money. She understands that you have to respect your elders." "That's right." Zena nodded. "Young people will get everything later, but for now, the elders should be the priority." Ella Laner gave me a meaningful look. Yes, some daughters-in-law understand, and some only think about themselves.
I
Clenched my fists under the table. Mom put a calming hand on my shoulder. Dad tensed, sitting up straight.
I felt the
Pressure building inside me. Then Ella Laner stood up with a glass in her hand. "I want to make a toast," she announced ceremoniously. Everyone fell silent and raised their glasses. "To my son, Darren, I dedicated my entire life to you. Everything I had, I gave. I worked 3 jobs so you wouldn't go without, denying myself everything. And now I hope that you will take care of me and your wife, too." Everyone clapped. I sat motionless, neither clapping nor drinking. After the toast, Eleanor slid close to me, almost touching me, speaking quietly but loud. Enough for the people next to us to hear. "Sierra," the mother-in-law began, "we're adults. Let's settle this condo matter right now in front of everyone. Will you agree to sign the condo over to Darren or me? It doesn't matter. The main thing is to make it official. We'll go to the notary tomorrow, and it will all be done. Everyone will be happy." I looked into her eyes. There was nothing human there, only greed and cold calculation.
No. What? No. No.
"I will not sign the condo over." "How can you say no?" "No, this is my premarital property, and it will remain mine. I will also stop the $1,000 monthly payments."
I'm done.
"I can't do this anymore." Ella Laner turned beet red.
She grabbed
her glass and downed it in one gulp. Then she stood up so abruptly that her chair tipped over. "Darren," she shrieked for the whole room to hear. "Do you hear that? Your wife refuses to support your mother in front of everyone. On your birthday." Everyone fell silent. Even the music seemed to quiet. Darren got up from the table. His face was scarlet. He walked toward me slowly, and I suddenly felt fear. A real animal fear. My father stood up too, rising to his full height. But Darren didn't pay attention to him. "Seer," he ground it out through clenched teeth, stopping in front of me. "I'm asking one last time. Will you sign over the condo?"
No.
"And you won't pay the $5,000 every month?"
No.
"I won't pay another cent. This is blackmail."
I'm
Tired. I can't take it anymore. The guests froze, staring at us. My father took a step forward, but Mom held him back. "You greedy, selfish but," Darren whispered. "My mother sacrificed her whole life for me, and you can't even help her. You begrudge her a piece of
bread.
Helping is one thing. Supporting is another. I am not obligated to give half my salary to your mother. She isn't starving." Eleanor shrieked. "Darren, you're a man. Show her who's boss in this house. She has no respect for you. She's insulting your mother in front of everyone." And then something snapped. Darren grabbed the heavy ceramic serving plate with leftover salad from the table. I didn't immediately grasp what he was doing, and by the time I did, it was too
Late.
The blow was swift and forceful. Darren swung and smashed the ceramic plate with all his might against my head. There was a dull crack. The plate flew into pieces. I fell from the chair to the floor. A flash of blinding pain. Warm blood poured down my face, obscuring one eye. My ears were ringing, and I felt dizzy. How dare you refuse? My mother? You ungrateful tramp. Darren roared, standing over me. One of the guests gasped. The women screamed, but no one rushed to stop him. No one stood up for me. Everyone was paralyzed, frozen, and Eleanor started clapping her hands. She clapped and shrieked with delight. That's right, Darren. That's
The way.
show her. That's how you train disobedient wives. Tanya nodded with a satisfied smile. In our day, husbands knew how to keep order. These modern women get too loose. A smack to the face and she'll be quiet as a mouse. Aunt Zena added. Darren did the right thing. Maybe now she'll come to her senses.
I
Lay on the floor, my face covered in blood, my head throbbing. But, strangely, inside me there was absolute stillness, an icy crystalline calm. No fear, no panic, just cold, clear thought. I slowly lifted my head and looked at my husband, who was standing over me, his face red and distorted, breathing heavily. I looked at his mother, still, clapping her hands. I looked at the guests who were silent, looking away, chewing their salad as if nothing had happened. And then I saw my father. Colonel Sterling stood with his fists clenched. His face was white, his eyes like ice. He took a step forward, but I raised my hand, stopping him. Not now. This was my fight first. I slowly, very slowly, got to my feet. Blood dripped. Onto the floor, onto my party dress, onto the tablecloth. I wiped my face with my hand, looked at my palm. It was covered in blood. My eyebrow was split open, or maybe my temple. It didn't matter. I looked Darren straight in the eye and said quietly, but clearly enough for everyone in the room to hear, "You have no idea what I'm capable of." There was no scream, no hysteria in my voice, only that icy composure, and that calm was scarier than any shout. Darren went, pale, taking a step back. Something in my eyes frightened him. Eleanor stopped, clapping. The smile slid off her face. The guests froze. Everyone was pale. Even Tanya, who had just been cheering on the abuse, suddenly shrank back. Because in that moment, everyone understood. Sierra wasn't going to cry. She wasn't going to beg. And she wasn't going to tolerate this. Something had shifted. Something had broken.
And now,
It was a completely different game. I silently turned and walked into the bedroom. Behind me, I heard voices. Well, she's offended. How sensitive. Darren did the right thing. Should have done it sooner. She'll cry now and come back. They all do. I locked the bedroom door. My hands weren't shaking.
my
Thoughts were perfectly clear. I went into the bathroom and looked at my face in the mirror. My eyebrow was split, bleeding. A bruise was already welling up on my cheekbone. Good. Everything was visible. I took several photos from different angles. The cut eyebrow, the blood, the bruise. I also photographed the shattered plate on the floor through the crack in the door. Everything was documented. The evidence was gathered. Then I opened the closet and pulled out a duffel bag. Quickly, methodically, I started packing. Documents, passport, marriage license, the condo title, all the papers for the condo, bank cards, laptop, chargers, a change of clothes, and a makeup bag with the essentials. Money, the $3,000 stash I'd saved for a rainy day. What else? A flash drive with important files. That was it. I sat on the bed and called 911. I waited for the dispatcher to answer. Police, what's your emergency? My husband just assaulted me. I need an officer. Dispatched. My voice was calm without hysteria. What is the address? I gave the address, hung up, and called the non-emergency line for medical assistance. EMS, how can I help you? I need medical attention, physical injuries, battery.
I.
Gave the address, hung up, then I called Alicia King, my lawyer. She answered. After a few rings. It was a late Saturday evening, her day off. Hello, Alicia. It's Sierra Sterling. I came to see you about the condo. Yes, of course. I remember. What's wrong? There was an incident today. My husband assaulted me in front of witnesses.
He hit me in the
Head with a plate. I've called the police and EMS. I need an urgent consultation. Can I come in tomorrow? Morning? The lawyer's voice became professionally crisp. Sierra, I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. For now, the most important thing is to document everything officially. The police, the medics, the report. Did you take photos? Yes, several. Excellent. Do not agree to
any.
Please do not accept reconciliation. This is a crime.
We'll
discuss everything tomorrow. Thank you. I hung up, sat on the bed, and pressed a towel to my cut eyebrow. The bleeding was slowly stopping. Outside the door, I heard muffled noise. The party was continuing. Darren was talking loudly, laughing. Zena was telling a story. No one came to check on
me.
No one knocked. But I knew my father was right outside the door. I could feel his presence. He was waiting and his time would come. 20 minutes later, there was a sharp, insistent knock at the door. I walked out of the bedroom. The guests went silent, staring at me.
I
walked to the door without looking at anyone and opened it. Standing on the threshold were two police officers.
A
man in his 40s and a young woman. You called us? The older officer asked. Yes, please come in. Darren jumped to his feet. Police?
Sierra?
What are you doing? I looked at him. I'm filing a report for assault and battery.
Eleanor
shrieked. What assault? Darren just calmed you down a little. It's your fault. You pushed the man. The officer raised his hand. Ma'am, please be quiet. Don't interfere with our work. He turned to me. Victim, please tell us what happened. Calmly, clearly, and without emotion, I recounted how my husband demanded I sign over the condo, how I refused, how he grabbed the plate and hit me on the head, how the plate shattered, and how his mother clapped and shouted, "That's right. The witnesses are right there," I said, pointing to the guests at the table. They all saw it. The police began to take notes. Darren went pale.
Sierra,
you're not going to. It was just a fight. A family matter. It is not a family matter, I replied coldly. It is a crime. Battery is a crime. The doorbell rang again. I opened it. The paramedics had arrived. The EMT, a woman in her 50s, came in and examined me. Laceration to the eyebrow, approximately 2 centimeters long. Contusion of the soft tissues of the head, hematoma in the temporal area about 4 by 5 centimeters, she stated, writing in her chart. You need to go to the emergency room first thing tomorrow morning to get an official medical report of battery. It's important for court. I will, I nodded. The EMT cleaned the wound, applied a bandage, and gave me instructions for documentation.
The
police were filling out the report, questioning the witnesses. Darren's aunts mumbled something incoherent, trying to avoid eye contact with the officers. Well, we didn't exactly see it. The music was loud. Maybe she fell. Herself. Tanya was silent, staring into her plate. Ella Laner was screaming.
It's
all lies. Darren didn't hit her. She fell on her own. She's making it all up. She wants to frame him. The officer noted dryly. Ma'am, there are witnesses. There is medical confirmation. There is a laceration and a hematoma. And there are shards of a broken plate. Your statement is recorded, but it contradicts the physical evidence. Darren was informed that he would face charges for domestic violence. It could be a simple misdemeanor or a felony. Depending on the severity of the injuries, a fine or a brief jail sentence depending on the judge. Darren was shaking. His face turned gray from red. I didn't mean to. I just snapped. She drove me to it. You can tell that to the detective. The officer cut him off. The guests began to leave quickly, silently, without saying goodbye or making eye contact. The aunts grabbed their purses and skewered out the door. The cousins vanished in a minute.
Tanya.
And Zena left without even saying goodbye to Ella. The party was over. When almost everyone had left, only I, my parents Darren, Ella, and the police officers remained, finishing up the report. Then my father stepped forward.
Colonel Robert Sterling.
Had been silent all this time, standing by the wall, arms crossed, watching his daughter get hit, watching the mother-in-law cheer, watching the guests chew their salads, watching the police fill out the report.
He was
silent, but I knew he was remembering everything. Every face, every word.
Now.
He moved slowly, deliberately, with military precision, tall, fit, and gay-haired, the bearing of a general. The police officers involuntarily straightened up when they saw him. Dad walked right up to Darren and looked down at him. Darren tried to step back, but hit the wall. "Did you do that?" Dad asked quietly, nodding toward my bloody
face.
Darren opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. He just nodded, barely perceptibly. "Quiet," Dad said. His voice was soft, but everyone froze. Even the police stopped writing. "We're going outside." It wasn't a question. It was an order. A colonel's order that could not be disobeyed. Dad grabbed Darren by the collar of his shirt and dragged him toward the door. Darren tried to break free, but the grip was iron. The police exchanged glances, but did not intervene. They saw father defending his daughter, and that was right. The door slammed shut behind them. I remained in the condo. A minute later, muffled thuds came from the stairwell. 1, 2, 3. Darren's cry.
"I'm sorry."
"I didn't mean it. I won't do it again." My father's voice quiet and hard. "You will answer for my daughter. You will answer for every drop of her blood." More thuds. Heavy professional hits. My father had served for 30 years. He knew how to hit to inflict pain without causing serious damage. Then silence. The door opened.
Dad
walked in calm, his hands at his sides. No scratches on his knuckles. He knew how to hit without hurting himself. Darren walked in behind him, limping on his right leg, holding his ribs. His nose was bleeding, his left eye was swelling shut, and his lip was split. "Sit down. Don't move," Dad commanded. Darren sat on a chair by the wall, shaking, silent. Dad turned to the police. "Officers, continue your work." The tone was military commanding. The officers nodded. The senior officer even seemed to stand at attention, recognizing the colonel's authority. Then Dad turned to Eleanor Hawthorne. She was sitting on the couch, shrunken. For the first time all evening she was quiet. Dad walked up to her, stopped, and looked down. "You approved of the beating of my daughter." Ella tried to say something, but Dad interrupted. "Quiet. I'm not finished." She fell, silent. "If you ever hear me ever approach my daughter again, call her, text her, show up near her home or workplace. You will regret it. You will regret it intensely. I served for 30 years. I have connections. I have people. And I will find a way to make your life miserable through entirely legal methods. Do I make myself clear?" Eleanor nodded, her lips trembling. For the first time I saw my mother-in-law, truly afraid. "Now get out of my daughter's condo, and take your son with you." Eleanor leaped up, grabbed her purse, and rushed to Darren. "Let's go, son. Don't let these people humiliate you."
"You'll stay with me."
Darren got up, with difficulty holding his ribs. His eye was swelling shut faster.
"The
husband's things," Dad said, turning to me. I silently went to the bedroom, pulled out the boxes where I had already packed all of Darren's clothes, shoes, documents, chargers, razor, all his belongings, and carried them to the hallway. "Take it and go," I told my husband. "Sierra," Darren began, "go. This is my condo." "No, it's my condo, my premarital property. You have no rights
to it."
I consulted a lawyer. Get out before I call the police again. Darren looked at the officers.
They were standing nearby.
He understood I wasn't joking. He grabbed the boxes. Eleanor was pulling him toward the door, wailing, "Let's go, son. Let's go. There's nothing for you here. She's not worthy of us." The door slammed shut. Silence. I sat on the couch. Mom hugged
Me.
Dad put his hand on my shoulder. The police finished filling out the report. "You need to come to the precinct tomorrow to give a full statement," the senior officer said.
And go to the
"Emergency room." "Absolutely. The medical report is necessary for court." "I'll be there," I nodded. The police left. Only my parents and I remained. "My daughter," Mom said softly, stroking my hair. "You did the right thing. The absolute right
thing.
I'm proud of you," Dad added. "You didn't panic. You stood up for yourself. You acted like a soldier." I didn't cry. Inside there was a strange emptiness.
No.
Self-pity, no resentment, just one thought. There will be a war, and I will win it. My parents stayed the night. Mom put me to bed and gave me a sedative. Dad remained in the living room, standing guard. No one would attack his daughter while he was alive. In the morning, I went to the emergency room. The doctor examined me carefully, documenting all the injuries. A 2 centimeters laceration to the eyebrow, a contusion to the head, a 4 by 5 centimeters hematoma on the temple. Everything was documented. I was given the official medical report. Then I went to my lawyer. Alicia King listened and nodded. "Sierra, you did everything perfectly. Now for the action plan.
First, you file for divorce today.
Second, you request a restraining order prohibiting your ex-husband from approaching you within 300 feet. Third, freeze all joint accounts if there are any. Yes, a debit card, where we pulled money for shared expenses. About $40,000 in there. Withdraw it immediately. It's your money. You have the right. The court can sort it out later, but withdraw it now." I left the lawyer's office and went straight to the bank. I withdrew all $40,000 from the joint account, transferred it to my personal one, and closed the shared card. Darren found out an hour later. He started calling from different numbers, sending texts. "You stole the money. Give it back immediately.
I'm suing you."
I didn't answer, blocking every number I knew. That evening, Eleanor showed up, banging on the door, screaming, "Thief!
Give my
son's money back. Open the door. I know you're in there, you buck." I called the police. A patrol officer arrived, wrote up a report for disturbing the peace, and issued Eleanor a warning.
"Ma'am, if
this happens again, we will file charges. Leave this woman alone." Eleanor left, cursing me every step of the way. The next day, Monday, I filed for divorce. In the reasons section, I wrote domestic violence. I attached copies of the police reports, the medical certificate, and the photos of the abuse. The judge set a hearing for a month later. I also filed for the emergency restraining order, demanding Darren be prohibited from coming closer. Then 300 feet to me. The court reviewed the petition immediately and granted it. Darren was officially forbidden from contacting me or appearing near my home or workplace. But Darren didn't calm
down.
He started staking out my office and my condo building. I called security, or the police, every time. After the third violation of the restraining order, Darren was issued a $1,000 fine and warned next time it would be jail time. Eleanor tried to reach my parents. She found their phone number and called complaining, "Your daughter destroyed my family. She threw my son out of his home. She stole our money." My mother listened calmly and replied, "Eleanor, my daughter is protecting herself from an abuser. Your son hit her in front of witnesses. If you don't stop calling, I will contact the police."
The
mother-in-law never called again. Darren tried to claim a stake in the condo through the court, filing a lawsuit for property division, demanding half the condo, arguing that they were married and he had contributed to the upkeep of the property. I arrived at the courthouse with Alicia King. The lawyer tore apart Darren's arguments. Your Honor, Alicia stated, standing at the podium. The condo was acquired by the plaintiff before the marriage. It is her premarital property. According to Georgia law, property owned by each spouse before entering into marriage is considered their separate property and is not subject to division. Darren tried to object, but I lived there. I paid the
花费
The defendant failed to provide a single piece of evidence that he contributed to the improvement of the condo. Alicia continued, utility and HOA payments were primarily made by the plaintiff as confirmed by bank statements. No major renovations or reconstruction occurred during the marriage. Furniture and appliances were purchased by the plaintiff before the marriage as confirmed by receipts and invoices. The judge reviewed the documents looking at Darren with thinly veiled contempt. The motion is denied. The condo is the sole property of Ms. Sierra Sterling and is not subject to division. Next case. Darren walked out of the courtroom gray-faced. Ella Lehner clutched her heart, wailing, "How can this be?
How can this be?
He was her husband. How is the condo not his?" But they didn't give up. A week later, Ella Lehner showed up at my work. She slipped past security and burst into my office. "You ruined my son's life," she screamed, waving her hands. "He's sleeping on the floor in my tiny apartment. He has nowhere to live. Give him the condo back." I pressed the security button. "Eleanor, leave the building immediately, or I'm calling the police." "I won't leave until you give him the condo back." Security arrived and forcibly escorted the mother-in-law out. I filed a police report for harassment and threats. Eleanor was issued an official warning. The next time will result in criminal charges. A month passed. Darren was still at his mother's. I learned from a mutual acquaintance that they fought constantly. Eleanor would scream at her son, "You're a burden, not a provider. You lost a rich wife with a condo, and now you're living off my retirement check." Darren tried to find work, but he kept getting fired. He started drinking, snapping at colleagues, being late, and missing work. His reputation was ruined. I kept living, working, and healing. I returned to my empty condo, but that emptiness was mine, safe and peaceful. I did some light remodeling, changed the wall colors in the living room, bought a new couch, and hung new art, erasing all traces of Darren. Every new detail was like a breath of freedom. 2 months after the divorce hearing, the final decree was issued. The judge reviewed the documents, the police reports, the medical certificate, and the photos of the abuse. My parents testified, confirming they witnessed the assault. The marriage is dissolved, the judge announced. Property is not divided. All premarital property remains with Ms. Sterling. The defendant has no rights to the plaintiff's condo. Darren didn't receive a single dollar. I received the divorce certificate and felt a massive wave of relief. It was over. I was free. Darren called a few more times from strange numbers, begging for forgiveness, pleading for money, crying into the phone. "Babe, I didn't mean to. I love you.
Give me one more chance."
I hung up every time. I wasn't angry or happy about his suffering. I just felt absolute indifference. That man was a stranger to me. Ella Lehner spread rumors among the relatives. "Sierra is a wicked woman. She destroyed my family. She tricked my son. She stole his condo."
But
no one listened anymore. Everyone knew the truth. Her son had assaulted his wife in front of witnesses, and the wife had protected herself. Everything was legal. Everything was fair. 3 months after the divorce, Darren was fired from yet another job. He drank more and more, visibly degenerating. Ella Lehner couldn't take it. "You're a leech, not a crutch," she screamed at him. According to her neighbor Tanya, who told mutual friends, "I wasted my life on you and you accomplished nothing. You lost a rich, smart wife, and now you're sitting on my neck and drinking my retirement money." Darren eventually left his mother's place, renting a room in a boarding house for $600 a month, scraping by on odd jobs, sinking further. I, however, moved forward. I was promoted at work.
I
Was named vice president of sales. My salary jumped to $15,000 a month.
I
Started saving, planning my future. I thought about buying a second condo to rent out or opening my own small business. My parents were proud of me. My father put it simply, "Daughter, you are a true fighter. You didn't break. You won." And I did win. I won my freedom, my independence, and my right to live the way I wanted, not the way someone else demanded. I never again allowed anyone to manipulate me. I never allowed anyone to violate my boundaries. I learned a lesson. Never tolerate abuse. Never give in to blackmail.
and
Never sacrifice yourself for those who don't value you. The condo remained.
Mine.
My life remained mine. My future remained mine. And Darren and Eleanor got what they deserved. Loneliness, poverty, and the realization of what they had lost due to their own greed. Sometimes in the evenings I sat on the balcony of my condo, my one indivisible condo, sipped tea, looked out at the Atlanta skyline and thought, I handled it. I defended myself. I know my worth, and I will never again allow anyone to humiliate me or take what is rightfully mine. I won that war, and now I knew, when necessary, I was capable of anything. Absolutely anything.
I'm
Really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.